It was the 1930s. Air travel was glamorous. Talking movies were all the rage. And swing was in. But fresh in the memories of many of these people was the First World War, which had finished just over a decade earlier. It had battered economies, toppled dynasties and governments, and torn lives apart, and many countries were still recovering. But in Europe, there was a dark cloud forming over the world of politics. In 1933, this man, Adolf Hitler, became Germany's leader. He was a convincing speaker who won fans by talking about ways to restore the country to its former glory. He was also obsessed with the idea of a pure German race, and he wanted that race to control all of Europe. He started building up the German army, and in 1938 the Nazis invaded Austria. At first, other countries didn't really react. In fact, some signed agreements with Hitler to keep the peace.
We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
But all that changed when the Nazis invaded Poland. They secretly had the help of the Soviet Union, a group of states including Russia. Poland was an ally of Britain and France, and on the 1st of September 1939, they declared war on Germany, and the Second World War began. On one side were the Allied forces, including Britain, France, and Australia, and on the other were the Axis powers, including Germany, Japan, and Italy, although Italy would later switch sides. In 1940, France fell to the Nazis. But two powerful forces soon joined the Allies. The United States after the bombing of its naval base Pearl Harbor in 1941, and the Soviet Union after it was invaded by its former ally Germany in the same year. The fighting spread across the globe, from the streets of Europe to the seas of the Pacific and the deserts of northern Africa. Meanwhile, in Germany and German-occupied countries, the Nazis were persecuting and rounding up people that Hitler said weren't worthy members of society, mostly Jewish people. They were sent to specially built prisons called concentration camps. Millions of people were killed or died from terrible living conditions, and those events are now known as the Holocaust. For a while, it looked like Germany was actually going to win the war, but a few big battles changed the course of history. The Nazis underestimated the Soviet army and lost a big deadly battle at Stalingrad in Russia in 1943. Then in 1944, American, British, Canadian and some Australian troops landed on the beaches of Normandy in France to begin the take-back of Nazi-occupied Europe. Nazi Germany was on the verge of collapse, and its fate was sealed when the Soviets moved in and captured Germany's capital, Berlin. Hitler was dead, and on the 8th of May 1945, Germany surrendered. While millions celebrated the end of the fighting in Europe, it would be another 3 months, 2 nuclear bombs, and many more deaths before Germany's biggest ally, Japan, would also surrender, bringing the most destructive war in history to an end.